We've seen it happening over the last few years where many companies are starting to abandon DEI practices because they understand that it's not good for their bottom line. Other companies, though, have leaders that are more true believers in the cause, so to speak. Whereas some companies push DEI because they thought that was the fashionable thing to do and they thought it would make them money. Then when it comes to find out that it actually loses them money, they're like, okay, I guess we can scrap that initiative because it doesn't work. Other companies, though, they still want to push DEI. So even if it's not working for them as a company, they're going to try to obfuscate the fact that that's what they're doing and maybe rebrand their DEI departments in order to try to fool the public into thinking that that's not really what they're doing. And that's kind of what we're getting at when it comes to Disney, because Disney has been a big source of this in the entertainment sphere, trying to push DEI and other things like that. And they haven't been shy about that fact in the past. But we're starting to see a cultural shift where maybe Disney is actually understanding that for their bottom line, it's just not good for business. And it's probably better for them to abandon these practices entirely. Some might think that this is just them trying to rebrand it and try to conceal it so that the general public doesn't know. But there are some reasons to suggest that maybe this is a more genuine effort and they don't actually care about such policies. They just thought it was the profitable thing to do. And now that they know that it's not, they're willing to abandon it. We have this article right here from That Park Place. It's going into details on it. So headline, Disney dumps DEI initiatives and SEC filings as corporate backlash grows. But is the company just hiding them behind the scenes? Yeah, and like I said, some companies are just trying to conceal the fact that this is what they're doing, and maybe that's what Disney's doing here. With the Trump administration cracking down on DEI and major corporations like Amazon, Walmart, Boeing, and Ford scaling back, Disney's decision to drop Reimagine Tomorrow and the Disney look from its 2024 SEC 10K report might appear to be a response to the changing political and cultural landscape. But is Disney truly abandoning DEI, or is it merely trying to hide its agenda from public scrutiny? And the reason why the election is such a big, important thing when it comes to this is because that pretty much was on the ballot. This election was DEI, and with Trump winning by a pretty large margin, it just goes to show that audiences are tired of this. I mean, as if the box office results the last couple of years haven't been a big enough indicator of that. The election, I think, just goes to show that there is kind of a cultural tipping point where a lot of these companies that are scaling it back, I think they were just kind of looking for an excuse to scale it back because they were worried about a lot of the activists on the left attacking them if they did that sort of thing. But now they pretty much have a mandate where they know, like, okay, well, this isn't going to hurt our bottom line. So I think we're a little bit more comfortable actually doing that at this point. Disney's disappearing DE&I initiatives. For years, Disney proudly touted its Reimagine Tomorrow initiative, which promised that 50% of all regular and recurring characters across the Disney universe would come from underrepresented groups. Actually, maybe they're just getting rid of that initiative because now the underrepresented groups are white people in Disney, so they're getting rid of it. The program gained notoriety in 2022 when a leaked company-wide Zoom call revealed executives openly pushing an identity-driven agenda. Another executive boasted about removing the words ladies, gentlemen, boys, and girls from theme parks to fall more in line with gender politics. And they also talked about having a not-so-secret gay agenda where they're trying to deliberately push LGBT people in order to try to indoctrinate other children and stuff like that. When that got out, a lot of parents were pretty upset about that. And we've seen some pushback in recent years, even some deliberate efforts by Disney to try to remove that content from their movies. And that's one of the reasons why I think this DEI initiative or this effort to roll it back a little bit on Disney's part may be a little bit more genuine, but I'll get more on that in a moment. But now in 2024, Reimagine Tomorrow has quietly disappeared from Disney's official DEI section in its SEC filings. The Disney Look the company's so-called inclusion of appearance policy has also been scrubbed. And I wouldn't necessarily expect Disney to make some big announcement that they're going to be undoing these policies, because that's one thing this article says is it thinks that, well, maybe Disney's not genuine in this because they didn't make an announcement that they're rolling these things back. But I don't think that's really in Disney's style. They don't really want to ever admit fault on their part. I think this is probably the best that you could really expect from them, is to just kind of quietly roll it back and then never address it again and then hope people just kind of forget about it. I mean, that's more in line with what Disney does. Maybe they could make a big announcement saying that we messed up and we're turning the clock backwards and just trying to do a big reset on everything like that. But I really wouldn't hold out for them to do that. I think if you want Disney to roll back their DEI stuff, this is probably what you should expect from them. At first glance, this might seem like a win for those who have been critical of corporate DEI policies, but a closer look suggests that Disney could just be shifting tactics. The initiative website is still active, and Disney has made no official statement announcing the end of these policies. Yeah, like I said, but I don't really think that they really should or they need to make a big announcement, and I don't expect them to actually make a big announcement. Major corporations like Meta, John Deere, and Google have significantly softened their DEI language, while others like Target are facing lawsuits for misleading investors about the financial risks associated with these policies. The lawsuits against Target in particular serve as a warning. Shareholders are no longer staying silent when companies put politics over profits. Not to mention, many of these policies are openly in violation of I believe it was the 1964 Civil Rights Act, that you can't discriminate against people based off of race when it comes to hiring practices. And when you have open DEI policies and then you're just not hiring white people for jobs, well, then that suggests that you're discriminating against them. And that's something that I think a lot of companies were willing to do in the past. The ones who maybe, I wouldn't necessarily say are the true believers, but ones who believe more in that cause than not. They've been trying to like openly or they have been discriminating against people, and they knew that there was no one at the federal government level who would actually do anything about it. But now that there's a different sheriff in town, I think they're a little bit less inclined to push such policies, because they understand that they might actually face some legal repercussions and potential lawsuits for having done so. So hiding in plain sight, the quiet DEI agenda. If Disney were genuinely moving away from DEI, it would be making a much bigger announcement. Like I said, I don't think that's necessarily true. Instead, it has opted for a silent deletion of key DEI initiatives from its SEC filings, while keeping related programs and messaging intact elsewhere. And that is a good point right there, because it's not entirely gone from the company. It's just some aspects of it is what they're scaling back right now or trying to conceal. It would be pretty obvious if they were getting rid of it entirely, because there still is DEI sections at the company, or even in their SEC filings, they list the ethnicities of their various board members as pluses in their books. If they're from a non-white group, they consider that a plus for them. So Disney very much still implements DEI policies at the company level, but for some things that has shown, at least in the last couple of years, that they're understanding that when it comes to the stuff that they produce for the public, it's not necessarily true. Like, take, for instance, Inside Out 2. That was a movie that was really successful for them, and that comes after a string of flops of movies that did overtly have DEI messaging in it. Then you get Inside Out 2, where they said, apparently, according to some insiders from Pixar, they made considerable efforts to actually remove any insinuation that the main character Riley was gay. And as a result, that movie was highly successful. So Disney's probably looking at this and saying like, well, the movies that push DEI are failures. The movies that don't push it and actually make efforts not to push it are successful. So from Disney's mind, it's like, it's pretty obvious which path that we should actually go down right here. And that's something that I think is a point in the favor of maybe this is genuine, because if the people at the top of the company were true believers in this cause, then they wouldn't allow Pixar to actually remove that type of content. But since they're allowing them to remove it because they understand it's more profitable for them, then that just goes to show that at the end of the day, they care about making money above any other type of political messaging. So while they might personally believe in those messaging, it's not going to stop them if they can make more money by just leaving it out entirely or making it a little bit more ambiguous, then that's what they'll do. And maybe that's what they're doing here. Disney's quiet erasure of key DEI programs from its SEC filings is a clear indication that the nation's climate is shifting. However, given the company's track record, this move could be an attempt to obscure its ongoing DEI efforts rather than a full-scale abandonment. And I think that's kind of a fair take right here. Maybe they aren't just getting rid of it entirely like some companies are doing. Maybe they are just trying to make it a little bit more obscure. Their movies are still going to have their messaging in it, but they're just not going to be as overt with it. and hope that they can maybe slip it under the radar. And from their minds, maybe it's like, oh, we can have our cake and eat it too. We can push our messaging in it. We can get that DEI BlackRock money, and we're still not in violation of any federal laws, and we're not going to draw the ire of the public. So I would say for people, like anything else, just be a little bit more diligent on what you consume, what companies you buy products for, what companies that you watch their entertainment for. I mean, if it is something that concerns you, I mean, if you don't care one way or the other, because there's a lot of people out there, they're like, I'll watch anything as long as it's not just overt messaging that's taking me out of it, then I'll be fine with watching that. And I think that's a fair take on it. And there's a lot of people who are like that out there, but there's other people who are like, well, no, if this is what the company stands for, I'm going to look into the companies, then I'm not going to be interested in anything that they produce. And if that's the case, and if you don't want any of that stuff whatsoever, even at the company level, then clearly Disney isn't abandoning it entirely. But I think a move like this could be something that helps Disney. And who knows, maybe later on down the road, they can see like, well, then if it is beneficial to us, then maybe we should just leave it out entirely. Or maybe they'll try to push it a little bit more again. And then people will be like, oh, wait, we see what you're doing now. You're trying to bring it back, and they'll be like, no. Okay, we'll roll it back again. We might see something like that. But right now it does go to show that at the very least, culturally, things are shifting where companies are understanding that this is actually a bad investment for them to try to push these sort of things. And I think at the very least, that is a plus right there. But let me know what you think about this in the comment section below. Do you think Disney is trying to abandon these practices? Or do you think they're just trying to conceal it because they understand it's bad for business? And also, if you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button if you want to stay up to date with the latest entertainment news. And don't forget to click that like button and share this video out there because it really helps out with the channel. Thank you.